Welcome to The Element of Play, the podcast for people who are tired of being told to be more productive, more disciplined, more serious, and somehow still exhausted. With your host, Jodi Salmond, marine scientist, author, speaker, and firm believer that play might just be the missing piece when it comes to leadership, connection, creativity, and coming back to life. Let's get into it. We spend our whole lives trying to be one thing. She decided that was exactly the problem. Welcome to The Element of Play, where we explore how to bring a little more play back into a busy life. A life that might be a little bit too hard, too serious, or just too burnt out. Somewhere along the way, we became human doings instead of human beings. And this show is about finding your way back. Each week, I sit down with someone who's either found their way back to lightness, curiosity, and connection, or is willing to share how they've kept it. And we unpack exactly what that looks like in real life. I'm your host, Jodi Salmond. And today I'm really lucky to be joined by Gabriella Salmond. No relation, although we do get that question quite a bit. I actually met Gabs at the very first partner acrobatics workshop that I went to, and it was a free event in the park. And I had absolutely no idea just how much that kind of movement in my body would actually go on to change my entire life. Gabriella Salmond describes herself as a multimodality community and connection facilitator, a storyteller at heart, committed to mastering human relationships. Her background spans teaching percussion and vocal expression, creative writing, and movement practices including acro yoga, alongside running art of facilitating workshops. And right now, her focus is community connection, including building platonic, non-erotic spaces for pleasure and connection. So welcome to the show, Gabriella.
Thank you for having me, Jodes.
Now, for starters, I think that I know you at least a bit well. I've known you for quite a few years, always through either acrobatics or dress ups or playfulness or ending up at similar events, etc. So I feel like I've got a bit of an understanding as to who you are, but certainly most of our listeners would not. So there was a beautiful introduction as to the myriad of things that you've been up to. And we've been discussing about not putting people into all these different boxes. So I would love to hear how you introduce yourself or what you've been up to now.
That is a tricky question. One of the ways that I describe myself a lot is that I'm a bit of an anomaly and I'm a bit of an outlier, and I cultivate that quite a lot across all of the different areas of life. So my approach to relationships and relationship structures, my approach to money and work and career, my approach to everyday living, I kind of get off a little bit on being a bit quirky and a little bit weird. My email address for years and years has been Gabriella's Adventures. And I love it when people say, what adventures? And the adventures change kind of season by season, week by week, year by year. And so I'm an adventurer. Let's put it that way. If I need to put it in a particular term, I cultivate curiosity. I like to feel and think that I've never let go of my internal 2-year-old that just constantly asks, but why? But why? Everything. Like, why career-wise? Why serious adulting? Why? And it's not super confrontational, at least not these days. It's more genuinely curious. Like, why are you doing these things? Do you value them? Do they feel good? Are they getting you closer to where you want to be? Why? Why are you doing them? Why? So yeah, I'm a 2-year-old in a grown-up body. Why?
I love that. And I actually love that you do ask a lot of questions. And even if that question is why, it's also just getting people to think just that little bit longer about what's going on. Because I do very much appreciate that you are very curious. I would certainly say that is certainly one of your values, is that curiosity in anything and anyone and how things work. And I love that. And I do think it can be quite challenging for people to be asked why they're doing something, because you just do it, right? But if you actually have to stop and think, but why? Why are you doing these things? What are you after? What are you hoping is the end goal? Do you just keep doing what you're doing? Because I love the saying, if nothing changes, nothing changes, right? Because I think some of us just get stuck there and you're like, yep, why are you doing it? Oh, because I've always done it. Well, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always have what you've always got, right? There's no way that you move forward. So I love that curiosity aspect. And I also love not putting people in boxes. It's a big thing that I've talked about with so many different people. It's like, why do we actually have to have a label for things? I understand that our brains love to label things from an understanding perspective, but
Mhm.
I also love to challenge the fact that we don't need to. What does it do to you if you don't have a label? Do you know what I mean? Like, I find that really, really cool.
Yeah, definitely. When I was a teenager, I was really into the personal development kind of spaces, and I've left that a long time ago. But one thing that did stick with me is a guy called John DeMartini. You're probably familiar with him. And he used to say the quality of your life is determined by the quality of the questions that you ask. And I heard that when I was a teenager, and it really, really sunk in. So I ask questions,
Mm.
not just why, that's an oversimplification, but I ask questions all the time of myself and everybody. So a really simple example that came up just this morning is somebody said to me, "Oh, you're really busy." And I said, "I'm not busy. I'm just fulfilled. I'm choosing things to fill my day." And busy is one of those throwaway terms that most people never investigate, and they
Mm.
project it onto the world as well. Busy, busy. Busy is a nothing word. Busy is not a
Mm.
feeling. It's not a sensation. It's, you could say I'm overwhelmed. You could say I'm really at capacity, whatever it is. So I'm quite pedantic, or I come across as quite pedantic sometimes. Of like, why are you using those words? Do you mean those words? What do you mean by those words? And those kinds of investigations, if you're doing them regularly, do actually change your life. I'm not busy. I'm fulfilled. I have a lot going on, that kind of thing. Um, so yeah, that feels important part of the way that I live life. Like the investigation. I'm like a social scientist, constantly investigating.
I love that. And I would 100% agree. I think that we, as a society, love to use the word busy as an excuse. It's like, for starters, everyone has stuff on all of the time. Some push more in than others, right? I definitely know that I put a lot of stuff into every day, but I also try not to use that word busy because it's also a mindset. And
Yeah,
so I actually use full. I'm quite full. Like and you used fulfilled, and I feel the same way in terms of that. Not full because it's bad, but fulfilled. I've got so many things that I like doing. If
yeah,
I didn't like doing them, I wouldn't put them in my day, right?
mhm,
I
yeah,
purposely curate those activities, and that just means that yes, it does get very full or more full than other times, but that just means it also gets to overflow. So I love that you brought that up because it's certainly something that I do. Every second person you talk to, I'm busy. Cool. What it actually means is that that is not a priority for you at the moment. That's it,
exactly.
right? That's all that happens.
Yeah,
So stop using this word busy as a lifestyle choice or like a badge of honor that you have so much going on, but
yeah,
instead question it. What do you actually have going on and how does it make you feel? Because if
yeah.
you start delving there, maybe all your busy items isn't actually as fulfilling or giving you the joy and playfulness and gratitude for what you have in life, and actually it's taking it away from it.
Yeah, absolutely. I am yet to meet a person who's perpetually busy who's also deeply playful. Like
Mm,
they cancel each other out. I'm busy, I'm busy, I'm busy. No,
yeah,
you don't have space to be playful. There's
yeah,
where's the spaciousness? Where's the softening, the slowing, the relaxing, those kinds of things. So yeah.
yeah. And I think that that was really important when I've shared a little bit with other people what happened, but I met you through this acrobatic workshop, and I just remember going in and having I can't remember laughing so much in that first class because yeah, you fall over like and we were on the ground. We were doing belly basing, right? So literally fall off on the ground. But there's people that you don't know and it's this really interesting space of it could be really overwhelming for some. And I certainly believe that potentially in your classes you can kind of expand on some of that. But it's also this really beautiful feeling of going, it's a challenge, whether that's a challenge for your body or for your mind or socially or any of these things. It can be a challenge, but it's in such a safe space. It
Mhm.
allows that growth. So actually thinking about it, it's really interesting that you talk about that you were you had the opportunity to be exposed to so much growth platforms when you were really young, because I definitely think that helps so much, especially in those growing minds. But considering I think that acro and all the things you do offer growth opportunities for actually everyone else. So although you might have stepped back from it in one way, you've certainly expanded in other ways in that as well.
Mhm. Yeah, I feel like the key elements of that are integrated. So it doesn't have to be this constant pushing in that direction. It's like, yeah, this is part of who I am. This is part of how I approach life. And yeah, when you're talking about having a space to laugh and connect and all of that can be quite confronting for people. One of the things that I say a lot in all of my different workshops is this idea of creating like a bubble world, because life is intense, especially in this moment in human history. There is a lot of pressure, there is a lot of overwhelm, there is a lot of helplessness and a lot of systemic oppression and all of those kinds of things. And so it's an unfair ask to expect people to just magically be able to switch into something that they might not have touched for 20 years. And how do we, our teams, that kind of thing, help people transition from that busyness, to use that term, and that sense of overwhelm or just the absence of investigation and curiosity about their own lives? How do we create that kind of bridge? And one of the really important ways is to create some kind of bubble, some kind of container, some kind of different space that we collectively hold together. And so I know the focus of this whole podcast is about play. And when I investigate personally, what are the conditions that promote play? And the primary one, the starting one, is to have an agreed level of safety together. And that's in the things that I offer, that's physical safety, that's discussions and agreements around consent. It's also emotional safety. So it's demonstrated in me, in the way that I interact with my students and my participants and also my assistants. But also, to get a little bit woo-woo, it's demonstrated in my energy. It's demonstrated in the fact that I've done a lot of deep personal work. So I know that if you come into my space and you have some kind of emotional breakdown moment, which happens, some of these things are really confronting. I'm asking you to connect with other humans and be vulnerable and do things that you might not be good at. That can be really triggering, to use that term, really confronting, overwhelming. So I feel really clear as a facilitator, I need to demonstrate enough emotional capacity to show that I can hold this. You can come and you can have a little emotional breakdown moment. You know, if you're severely in a mental health crisis, my spaces are not for you. But apart from that, like that general level of humaning, of just, I can hold this because I've been in these spaces a long time. I've explored that in myself. And so we're creating emotional, practical, collective group safety that then it's like the seed of the possibility for more play. And the play, for me, play is like the magical alchemy of curiosity and risk held in a safe space. So we can cultivate curiosity and we can find our edges of risk. Risk can be physical, it can be emotional, it can be intellectual, in terms of putting forward a new idea in a group space and holding that vulnerability and that fear of, like, people might laugh at me, I might get shut down. It might become obvious that I don't understand this concept, and that kind of thing. But is the safety of the space holding it well enough so that we can be curious about our own process and about other people's process and find little moments of more risk? Because we tend collectively to be risk adverse. It keeps us safe. It's really valid in our everyday life to not risk much, especially if we're people who are on the edge of overwhelm, which a lot of people are. Not me, yay, but a lot of people are. So it's really valid to not constantly be pushing your edges of risk in an everyday space where you don't have that container of safety, you don't have that invitation and that support and all of those kinds of things. But in my spaces, I really focus on enough safety and then enough deliberate cultivation of curiosity so we have space to risk a little bit. And then when you add the other little drops of moments of lightheartedness, and I'm a bit of a joker, and I have terrible dad jokes, and I make lots of puns and that kind of thing. Like the heaviness and the lightness, all of those, it's a magical alchemy.
I love all of that actually. And there's so many gold moments just there. So thank you. One of them in particular, when you just mentioned that it's the heaviness and lightness, what
Mhm.
popped to mind is that yes, it's a beautiful space where both of those things can be held. And we've been speaking on other episodes actually about that sometimes what you think is opposites is not necessarily opposites. They can actually be held together if the space is safe to do so and to actually explore that. So I loved when you mentioned, yeah, heaviness and lightness, because that's actually really important to recognize that although in particular through the play method, I actually talk about lightness as a way of, reducing some of what I classify as the heaviness or something that you're carrying, right? You just mentioned it there. It can actually both sit in the same space. And I love that you talk about curiosity so much. And your answer as to what does play mean to you, because it's one of the questions I ask everyone. I love that so much. So I'll definitely be writing all of those notes down because I didn't really even think about that idea of yeah, the risk, and certainly that we are so risk adverse,
Mm.
especially when we don't feel safe, right? It's our brain's way of trying to make sure that we feel safe all the time because sometimes we need to be able to control something. So I actually feel when you're talking about all of these things, I'm like, oh, you know what? Some of it is that maybe we have lives that are kind of out what we feel to be out of control. And so we try and control whatever we can. And so then going into a space where it's like, I can't control, because now there's a second person involved, or a third
Yeah.
person, or a fourth person, and I can't control all of that either. That does actually, it feels that little bit of an edge there to go, oh, let's lean into this. Or, as you mentioned, like some people will actually retract. So there's a lot of gold there. So thank you for sharing. And that actually goes straight into one of the questions I had was like, you speak very eloquently about how to make these spaces safe and making sure that you can recognize like what is going on with other people, whether that's physically, mentally, emotionally. And that actually takes a lot of not only strength but understanding. So is it from personal experience at all that you've had some of this occur where now you uh, can very easily identify, or was there a tough time in your life that actually led to any of this, or have you had tough times in your life?
To answer the easiest one, yes, I've had tough times in my life. Um, to answer it overall, I would say this is the first word that popped into my head is that it's a lifelong obsession with understanding my own process, with understanding other people's process. I wanted to be a psychologist when I was 13, that kind of thing. I've always been deeply fascinated by and absolutely, yeah, obsessed is the word, even though it has some level of negative connotation. Like there's an element of how I approach these things when it comes to mastery of human connection. And when I say mastery, I mean being able to hold the big stuff and also help people bridge between each other, not just me bridging with other people, but other people finding their own bridges and connections. Yeah, there is an element of obsession, and I'm aiming for mastery, whatever that means. Like it's not a static point,
Mm.
but in terms of what I'm willing to devote and have devoted across my lifetime, for a little bit more context, I do have a degree in counseling and I do have a grad cert in mental health and neuroscience. So I do have some of those pieces of paper. I have done the mainstream kind of path. I was for years the youngest attendee at weekend long personal development trainings and that kind of thing. I can't even count the number of books that I've read in spiritual, personal, NLP, all of those kinds of things. Like this is deep in my life. There's no other point to life for me. I'm not interested in anything else as much as I'm interested in these kinds of things. It's just it's pointless for me.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, that has been completely clear for me my entire life. In terms of a really poignant turning point, my mother died when I was 13, and she was sick on and off for 3 years before that. She died the day after my 13th birthday. And to be learning how to hold death and the awareness of the impermanence of life from when I was 10 years old, and to be the kind of person that I am who thinks deeply about things, I was nicknamed the sitter in grade six camp because I would go off and sit by myself and I was contemplating death. I was contemplating life and death in grade six camp. Um, so it has that basis, and so much of my resolute commitment to curiosity and expansion and exploration and not staying stuck in a rut is because I am so aware that I'm going to die. We're all going to die. And I have weighed all of my big life decisions for my entire life against, if I knew I was going to die sooner than I thought, which direction would I take? What would I decide right now? I've been balancing my decisions on that turning point for my entire life. So yes, that is quite different than the norm. I can occasionally get quite frustrated with people who don't seem to realize we're going to die. You're going to die. This is important. This is an important fact. It's not guaranteed. Your health isn't guaranteed. Your mobility isn't guaranteed. The people that you're looking around in your life and you're saying, I want to connect with these people more, they might not be there in 5 years. You know, I'm going to die, but they might die as well. So this kind of taking long timelines for granted, I never have. Never, ever, ever. Which has been, it's a pro and a con. It sometimes means that I've been a bit of a flitter around here and there. So I'm experimenting these days with expanding my timelines and how do I find that middle ground between I could die in a month or I could be around for another 50 years. You know, there is some kind of mellowing happening in my life, but particularly this year. So I turned 40 in January. My mother died the month before her 41st birthday. So I'm very aware this is the last year of my life that I'll ever be the same age as my mother. And it's a fascinating transition point, some kind of like rite of passage kind of thing of like, I'm really curious about what changes in my life and the way that I approach things in this transition. When I get to 41 is complete new territory. Like, what does that mean? That kind of thing. So that curiosity is profoundly existential as well. It's not just, can this arm move there? Or, you know, can we balance this person on that person? And does this feel pleasurable or not? It's existential. The curiosity of, will I live a long time? Will my life change dramatically multiple times or not? What is all of those kinds of things? So yes,
And
that is one answer.
and it's really interesting because I don't know if it's an age associated thing at all. And it might not be because obviously you have quite a timeline in terms of you've got you've got a matriarch, right? So your mother at 41, so they were almost 41. So there's definitely a time association there. Whereas I am over 40, I'm 45, and I think for the past couple of years I get very big thinking sometimes of this existential kind of like, what happens? What's next? Like I just I can go down wormholes very quickly of trying to work out like from an age perspective as well is like, well, what is there? How long do I have to live? Or yeah, so it's and I to be completely honest, I think part of that's really scary. Like I think I can think about things really, really deeply. And I would certainly say I have a very curious mind. My background is science. And so I'm always like, yeah, but how does that work? And how do we make it more efficient? And how can we make that better? Or what's going on here? Like, what's the mechanism behind it? Even in relationships and everything else. Like, how did we get to one point? Like, what was the things that got us to this thing here? And sometimes I think it's just through the last few years in particular, like exploring more in terms of whether that's breath work or ice baths, all these things that are little gateways, right? They're not, it might not be really massive gateways, but they certainly open up a new form of thinking. And it's been super fascinating to go back and have a look at what am I thinking at what time. Definitely in the last couple of years, I'm like, what's happening in the universe, and not even just as an individual, but then in that community basis. And is there this idea of like the worldwide thinking? Like, there's so many different layers to it. So I do appreciate you sharing all of the moments that you just did then. And I think some of us do actually think about it, and potentially whether you think about it more as you get older, I don't know. You've been thinking about it for so long. that I find that super fascinating because I'm sure it's quite different for a lot of people. And that, as you mentioned, some people don't think about death at all. And I think that's probably because it is so scary for some.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, anyway, that's a very big wormhole, really, isn't it, to go into? But
Yeah.
so thank you for sharing because that's definitely been a bit of a moment. Um, and I did want to draw on one thing because we've had a conversation before. We've had many conversations, obviously, but there was something that popped up, and I wanted to bring this up because you'd mentioned that during COVID in particular, let's be honest, it was such a shit time for so many people, right? So many things for so many different reasons were going on all over the world, and everyone, I feel, it created a really big disconnection because you couldn't necessarily meet with your friends or your family. Yes, Zoom is great for these kind of things, but it nothing beats a genuine hug or physical touch for that connection piece. And you had mentioned to me previously that you had felt potentially the most severe disconnection from joy during that time. And I don't want to drag us all the way down, but you know what? We've been talking about some pretty heavy topics. So I kind of just wanted to unpack a little bit of that because this show is about really understanding ourselves. But what are those tiny, tiny things that we can do that actually bring us back towards ourselves, right? You might never have lost yourself. I certainly have lost pieces of myself along different journeys, and maybe I didn't need them, right? They're like the jacket. I can take it off and go, you know what? I don't need that anymore. But I keep thinking of it as a bit more of a transformation or an evolution, right? You know what? It was there for a reason. It served me for a portion of my life, and now it's time to, I don't need it anymore. I can move on. And I guess I kind of wanted to explore. I personally have definitely gone through stages of feeling disconnected and in need of more play. And again, for me, it was actually acrobatics or acro that brought that back. I didn't even realize it was missing until I had burst out laughing. And I remember walking out of that class, that very first class, going, I don't even know why. When did I stop feeling like this? This is beautiful. And when did it stop? So it's like that Groundhog Day. So I guess for you, was it during that COVID time or has it happened? Like, have you ever felt disconnected, considering that you've just mentioned how connected you are to your feelings and emotions and systems?
Yes, I would say to some extent, my entire life I've felt disconnected from other humans. Um, and I have said in other conversations that my connection to nature has been what saved me when humans haven't been there.
Mm,
I relationally have experienced a lot of literal aloneness and isolation due to not having solid biological family, due to not having long term partners, due to moving multiple times, due to being somebody who actually speaks up when things aren't working in spaces, which often means that you're not very welcome in those spaces anymore. Being somebody who has higher standards than a lot of people around what constitutes satisfying connection and socializing. So yes, I literally just last week hosted a community conversations in my lounge room around loneliness. I host one a month. And I said, my set point, my lifelong set point is loneliness. My lifelong set point is I don't feel as connected as I want to feel, which is the deepest inspiration to invest deeply in creating the kind of spaces that feel more connected and more real, that feel more playful, that feel more human, that feel safer so that we can turn up however we are, not just the shiny, bubbly, bouncy version. Just turn up. I regularly say to people, turn up and be a grumpy mole in the corner. Like, just, but be here. Like, our nervous systems joining together, being in the same space, we will change each other's set point. We will have deep synergy together. And you mentioned the COVID times, which I've spoken to you previously about. From a physiological perspective, we encountered something that we've never encountered before in human history. You know, in hundreds of thousands of years, we've never done that.
mm,
And on a nervous system level, it fried us. And very few of us have spent deep time deconstructing and investigating what happened and what came up. So for me, so much came up. I was also in a very intense romantic sexual relationship that was causing me to question so much as well. So those two things in concert with each other caused basically an identity collapse. It was the first time that I'd ever not wanted to exist. It got to the point of I don't have faith in humans anymore. But a very interesting thing that came out of that is I realized that for the majority of my life, or the totality of my life before COVID times, part of me had been in denial that I was human. Part of me had been really stuck on this idea of I'm an alien. I wrote a song about it a couple of years earlier about aliens don't go home for Christmas, of like, mothership come save me, that kind of idea of like, I don't belong here. I'm stuck here against my will, that kind of thing. So during COVID times, that was one of the things that I had to collapse and I had to face. Of course, I don't feel deeply connected with humanity right now because I'm not identifying as human. Like that's a pretty big disconnect. And I realized that part of me was avoiding connecting with being human because I was so in despair and disgust and grief around what humans are doing collectively. Like it's terrible. That's a very mild word for it, collectively. I didn't want to be part of that. I didn't want to claim my humanity because then I also had to claim that I'm part of the species that are committing all of these atrocities. And that is so much grief. That is so much disbelief and helplessness and overwhelm and all of those kinds of things. It's all of that. Yes, it's all of that. But it also means that I can't connect to, if I'm saying I'm not fully human or I'm not human, I can't connect to the deep human joy of actually being there with a puppy, with a baby, with the sunset, with the rising sun, with standing on the ocean, like at the beach, and watching the waves and just feeling that sense of being so small and yet so integrated into this magical adventure. Like I was to some extent short-circuiting my ability to connect with that part of humanity because I was to some extent, and none of these things are 100%, but to some extent, just denying that I was part of it. And so I would say after that it was an existential identity collapse. I am so much more humble than I used to be. I am so much more willing to find mutual humanity with other people. I am less arrogant. I put myself on less of a pedestal. I have less of a superiority complex. I'm saying less of. There's still like little bits there, Yeah, like I'm willing to be more, I'm willing and capable of being more, yes, in the grief with other people, in the frustration, and in the curiosity of like, what is this? What is this existentially on a macro level? What is this on a micro level? Sitting there with somebody that I'm attracted to and those little sparks are happening. And it's just like, what is this? Like, I know I sound like a broken record coming back to curiosity, but curiosity is infinite. Curiosity expands us. If we don't have curiosity, we just have a bunch of dead ends, and we have a very narrow. There's nowhere to go. There's just nowhere to go. So the curiosity, and you mentioned before around the contrasts of holding the light and the dark and the heavy and the light and that kind of thing. And something else that came up for me when you said that is the work of Maria Montessori, who developed the Montessori system. And she really put forward this idea that like play is serious. Play is the work of the child, right? Play doesn't necessarily mean ha 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 light da 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 da. Play is also, can I investigate this relationship dynamic so intimately and intricately and with so much curiosity that I can find the cosmic joke of it. Like I might have just had my heart broken, but on some level, there's some element of like, lol, isn't this funny? Like, you said this was your biggest trigger or your biggest heartbreak, or this has happened 100,000 times before, and now you get to face it again. Can you hold it a little bit differently? Can there be a
Mm.
little more space in your response? And the ability to be playfulness with our hurts, to be playful
Yeah.
with our hurts as well, of like, I'm having another existential crash. Like, I'm going to go and be like a little swamp dragon for a couple of days. And yes, it sucks. And I'm really not enjoying myself, but also on some level, existentially, overall, it's a bit funny. Like
Mm.
I
Yeah.
was really angry about something the other day. I was genuinely feeling hurt in a relationship, and I went and stomped in the forest, like literally stomped. There was no one else there. I yelled the meanest things that I can ever say out loud, and I stomped. There was nobody. I wasn't hurting, but I was shaking, and I was putting my shoulders up and down, and I was whoa, whoa, whoa. I broke my shoe. Even I was that
Ah.
committed, and it's like, yeah, I'm genuinely angry and there's genuinely emotional stuff to process. But by the end of it, like I was laughing my head off at myself. Like it's funny.
Yeah.
It's funny. And I'm being playful with the anger and the big feels. Like, yeah, it's
Mm.
tricky. I'm really teaching myself even more than I used to be able to hold the both and of yes, this is a serious, important thing. And also existentially, is it? It's a
Mm.
both and kind of thing. So that
Yeah.
was many tangents, many pieces for you.
I love it. I always call them squirrels because I go, oh, like there's another, it just keeps going in different meandering more like
Yes, yes.
little ways. So thank
Curious.
you. I love it. Yeah, it is. And it kind of I saw something once, actually my partner showed me. It's a video about how men think and women think. Anyway, it was mainly talking about the men. And because he says he's got an empty box that he just plays in. I was like, what do you mean? There's a box in your head that there's empty? I was like, I feel like
Yeah,
mine's a ball of string. And you know when it's really tangled up and you try and get it out and you can't find it, so you just cut and you make a new start. I was like, I
yeah,
feel like that's what mine is. There's 1,000 different starts in there. So, but if you pull it, well, you'll find like heaps of different ends somewhere. Like it's a very, very different mode of thinking. So I really do actually appreciate your energy, but also we've had so many conversations. And one thing that you said and I love is that all of you is welcome here. And I think that really kind of showcases so much through our conversation so far is like, as you mentioned, if you are not feeling 100%, so many of us will be like, oh, I'm not going to go tonight. Like, I'm peopled out, don't want to go. But sometimes for me, I recognize even turning up to class in the park, like just everybody meets in the park and I don't even turn up to do anything,
mhm,
but be there with and watch it and be a part of the community and the space that you've managed to create both within classes but externally. It's about community and connection, and I think that's really special because it doesn't happen everywhere. And I certainly feel that the workshops that you run, regardless of what the topic is, definitely target those things such as safety, such as consent, and such as just being welcome there. And another thing that you really mentioned was about kids and about this energy about being able to go and stomp in the forest and be playful with different emotions like anger. And what came to mind is something that we've discussed before is that energy of the 2-year-old, right? So if I said like, who teaches you these moments? These lots of people like to say play is childlike, right? I personally, I don't feel that it's, I think it's the wrong terminology for me. I love being playful and I think everyone can be playful. And some people go, it's what we used to do as a kid. It's not at all. You can be playful in every single moment of your life if you choose to. But as you said, be curious and maybe embody that inner child a little bit more so that let them out,
mhm.
let them play, let them explore, let them be curious and start to understand the world again in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing that comes up for me when I hear that is, well, what is childlike?
Yeah.
What is a child demonstrating that we, when I say we, I mean adulthood collectively, feel like we've lost? Because children, they're just being.
Yeah.
And so if we cultivate more overall being and cultivate accepting all of our different parts, one of the things that I speak to a lot is a lot of people want to feel better. I'm not interested in feeling
Mm.
better. I'm interested in getting better at feeling all of the different feelings. Yeah, my capacity to feel grief and despair is expanding my capacity to feel anything. which means it's expanding my capacity to feel pleasure. It's expanding my capacity to feel curiosity and openness and spaciousness and those kinds of things. Like, our ability to feel is what I'm interested in expanding in myself and all of the people around me. Not like, oh, well, how do I put you in a narrow little kind of corral so that you will feel better, quote unquote. That's not even really a thing, like, perform the emotions that society has deemed are acceptable. That's a bunch of nonsense. Like,
Yeah.
that just makes us small, diminished versions of ourselves. 2-year-olds don't have, healthy 2-year-olds don't have that small, diminished version of themselves. When they're angry, they're angry. And when they're joyful, they're joyful. And there's no block. There's no like, oh, is this the appropriate place to be joyful? What will this person think? That kind of thing. Like, there is a fluidity in it as well. And you could tie that back to the play element. Play is fluid. Play is responsive. Play is not regimented and rigid and that kind of thing. And so feelings need to be cultivated to be able to be fluid again, to be able to be, hey, I'm really mad right now, but it's funny, that kind of thing, and to be able to hold that well. So yes, that came up when you said the last things that you said.
Awesome, thank you. Because what I also wanted to kind of feed on from what you were just talking about then, and it's, we started off the entire interview talking about, not being pigeonholed, essentially, right? You are many, many things. And so I guess it's like, if I want to find you, for example, for starters, what would you tell people? Like, how do we find you? And I'm not going to put you in a box because I know there is no box, A, that could ever contain you. But secondly, I'm a big one for, I don't think everything needs labels and clean marking either. So I guess it's like, what do you want people to take away from the conversation today in particular, and about not being pigeonholed or put into all these different boxes?
The thing that I would most like to leave with people from this conversation is to focus on expanding our ability to feel overall, whatever that means for you. And if that's a dead end of like, how do I do this? Find people who seem to be demonstrating a wide range of feelings. Spend more time with them, or come out hanging with me. I offer a lot of different options. And in terms of finding me, if you mean very literally, I'm on social media, Gabriella Salmond. I just go by my name, Salmon like the fish, and Gabriella like the archangel of the Annunciation, who I was named after.
Cool.
Yeah, at the moment, I'm really focused on the Sunshine Coast community and area, but I am expanding. I've had a long season since COVID, being the tree, as I say, and now I would like to be the bird a little bit more. So I'm going on a road trip to Cairns next week, and I'm hosting some events up there, and I'm looking to expand my networks again, the entire East Coast and overseas if and when it happens. Yeah, I'm very curious about how I can be a more prolific gardener, how I can spread more seeds, how I can be a better pollinator. Maybe not be in every one of these communities to really, water the plants every day, but I'm gonna go and pollinate and drop some more seeds and see what happens and that kind of thing. So yes, that's the season that I'm in at the moment of like, where's the new opportunities? I'm still based on the Sunshine Coast, but I'm expanding my platonic pleasure offerings into Brisbane really soon. I'm contemplating a road trip down to Melbourne and doing some things between here and there. I'm teaching acro yoga in Townsville. I'm running my erotic play space in Cairns. I have a new offering investigating interpersonal power dynamics, so I'm slowly launching that as well. I've got community conversations. I'm sure some other things that I can't remember right this second as well.
That's okay. I will promise to put how people can find you, so your socials in the show notes as well. So we will definitely make sure that there's a few links to different things that you've got happening, because yeah, as you mentioned, there's so much going on. I love that you're up to so many different things, and we can help you be a more prolific pollinator, I guess,
Yes.
is how we're going with that. I love it. So the one thing, there's going to be two more bits. One thing that I love to do each week is actually a play of the week. Now, for those that haven't listened just yet, but they don't know, this is my favorite part of the show, which essentially we get very practical. We want to increase the level of play in your day. Again, the idea is we want to be embodying human beings rather than human doings. So I really also want to feed off what Gabriella has been saying for the whole time is like, how do we actually integrate that in a 2-year-old? How do we explore a little bit more? So this week's play of the week is all about curiosity and connection. Where can you ask just another one little question? Where can you go a bit deeper in your emotions and feel a bit more? Or where can we just explore your surroundings, explore how you feel, explore what's going on for you? And as Gabriella has mentioned, just be a little bit more curious in your decisions. So, Gabs, thank you so much for today. We have covered so much ground there. Really appreciate it. We'll have to definitely have you back on the show, and we'll talk a little bit more about so many other things that have been going on for you, especially because there's lots and lots of things, right? No titles, lots of things. Love it. I just hope that if you have had a connection with any of the things that we've said today, please make sure that you reach out to either of us. If there's something in the show that really resonated and you think that maybe your friend would benefit from having a little bit more play in their day as well, please make sure to like, follow, share all of the things that you do in any of your social circles there. And remember, until next time, add a little play into your day and feel a lot more human. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Element of Play. If this sparked something in you, follow the show, share it with someone who needs it, and come find me at elementofplay.com. Stay curious, stay playful, and remember, life was never meant to be beige.